There are many unexplained creatures that lurk out there. For hundreds of years, people have been encountering what they describe as witches. For the last few years, there have been reports coming from New Delhi about an alleged witch. Most supposed witches were usually old women and were very poor. Any who are unfortunate enough to be crone-like, snaggletooth and sunken cheeked were assumed to be witches. This witch did match these descriptions, and many have allegedly encountered her. Some describe her as looking very old and wearing a large cloak, while others said she was small and gave off a bad odour. These sightings have caused panic in the local area, and hundreds of homes even painted palm prints to warn off the creature. One person said the following about their encounter. While with a few friends, we encountered this creature. We was walking through a secluded area when we saw what appeared to be a woman around 200 meters from us. As we approached, however, we could tell this wasn't an ordinary woman. Her eyes were a piercing yellow colour. She looked really old and had a menacing grin. She attempted to speak to us and tried to get us to follow her, but we ran off. After telling other people of our encounter, they too said they'd seen her. People in my area haven't been this scared in a while, and people are doing everything to avoid her. People who spoke to the woman have said she tries to get you to follow her to an unknown location. It's believed that no one has gone with her, or if they did, they haven't lived to tell the tale. Stories like this have been around for years. A police officer in Mexico had a similar encounter. The police officer was on patrol in his car at around 3:15 in the morning. When he turned into a street, he noticed that something wasn't quite right. He said that he saw a huge black object fall from a tree, but instead of hitting the ground, it seemed to levitate. It then slowly touched down to the ground and began to turn around to face him. The police officer couldn't believe his eyes. He turned on the 4 beams of his patrol car to investigate. After shining the lights towards the creature, this only seemed to anger it. The entity then covered its face. The police officer said that he could see the being quite clearly. He described it as a woman with 2 big black eyes without eyelids, and very dark skin. He said the female figure was dressed all in black with a cloak like a witch. After observing him for a few seconds, the creature suddenly burst into a violent rage, and leaped upon the hood of the patrol car and attempted to attack the officer. The officer tried to reverse the car and call for backup. Luckily, he managed to escape. After the ridicule he received, he decided to take a lie detector test. The test showed he was telling the truth. He also passed other exams which proved he was sane. This household experienced something strange late one night. This person said the following about the encounter. Here in Canada, I have in-laws way up north in a place called the Northwest Territories. They're native and have a lot of weird tales from their community. They have families spread all over the north, lots of whom are in Alberta as well, and this will play into the story. On this occasion, it was a typical winter night. This happened around 10 years ago at my in-laws' grandparents' house. Due to it being this time of year, it was very dark and way too cold to be outside. It was at least minus 40 degrees Celsius. Everyone was hanging out. People were watching TV and the kids were playing. A typical family evening. However, this was interrupted by a knocking at the door. The knocking was hard and persistent. This was immediately strange as they live way outside of any real towns with kilometers between neighbors, and unannounced guests are almost unheard of. The grandparents are visibly concerned and tell everyone not to open the door. The knocking became harder and the guests began to speak, loudly stating that they were an auntie and that she'd been invited over. The kids wanted to answer the door to see their auntie, and apparently it sounded exactly like her. So their grandpa had to block the kids from going near the door, and tell them to get away from the door and windows as well. The knocking became pounding and the guests started yelling and screaming to be let in. Eventually it stopped and the guest was gone. The next morning there was no tracks outside in the snow, and no signs a vehicle had been in the area. This auntie lived in Alberta and had no plans to visit. Nothing happened after that, but it's something that does happen in these areas. Believe it or not, Wendigo is a major piece of folklore in that family as well, and they refuse to talk about it for fear of drawing one in. The Wendigo is a creature that some believe resembles a zombie. In some forms the Wendigo is the size of a human, while in others it can be 15 feet tall. The earliest description of the Wendigo was that of similar appearance to a skeleton-like creature. They're believed to have a thin body with grey skin. The creature is said to be an ugly beast. Some have even suggested it's a relative of Bigfoot. Others who've encountered them say they're more like a werewolf. This theory has been put forward several times. People who think they're seeing a wolf or even a werewolf are actually encountering this creature. When people started to mysteriously disappear in the 20th century, many began questioning where they could have gone. It was then thought the Wendigo was preying on the weak. Rough translation of Wendigo is the evil spirit that devours mankind. This translation is related to the version of the Wendigo that claims he has the powers to curse humans by possessing them. Over the years, many people have witnessed mysterious creatures. Unfortunately, during these events, most people are caught off guard, so we're only left with the testimonies of those affected. One person had this to say about their encounter. 6 or 7 years ago, I was at our family's cottage with my family. My dad, little sister and I went out for ice cream and came back after dark. I was in the back right seat and my little sister was on the other side. We pulled into the cottage and I got out my door. However, I was startled to see a beige figure standing upright behind my shoulder. I stared at it for a second, and then quickly backed up and ran to the front of the car. This was where my dad and sister were waiting for me to go inside. I asked them if they were just standing behind me to try and scare me. However, they looked at me strange and said no. It was dark and I could only see the silhouette of whatever it was. For some reason it struck me as dog-like. This was in an area with lots of Native American lore and history. I was reading a book about cryptids a couple of days later and saw a picture of a skinwalker. It looked very similar to what I saw, except this figure was my height, not the size of a full-grown man. What this person witnessed could have been a skinwalker. In many Native American legends, a skinwalker is a person with the supernatural ability to turn into any creature he or she desires. Some have even come forward and said that they've seen these creatures shapeshifting in real life. These creatures have a variety of appearances, but skinwalkers are usually very hairy in their human form, and often wear animal pelts. Some tribes describe them as the perfect version of the animal in question. Since skinwalkers are shunned and despised, numerous attempts have been made to hunt one. However, they're not usually successful. Some skinwalkers can have the power to read human thoughts. They also possess the ability to make any human or animal noise they choose, regardless of their current form. A skinwalker may use the voice of a relative or the cry of an infant to lure victims outside the safety of their homes. Another person had a similar encounter in which they described meeting a humanoid late one night. They described this person as very tall and acting strange. They said that there had been stories of skinwalkers in the area, and they think that what they saw may have been one. Luckily they got away, but said they haven't seen the humanoid since. Shadow people are said to be shadow-like creatures of supernatural origin which appear as dark forms. It's said that humans can't focus on them, and when we try to, they move between walls. Reports of shadow people are similar to ghost sightings, but differ in that shadow people are not reported as having human features, wearing modern clothing or attempting to communicate. This person said the following about their encounter. I was awakened by a shadow outside my room swaying from side to side. What's bizarre is that my cat responded to it. When I went out to look, there was nothing there. I've never really had any paranormal experiences up to this point, but what happened a few days ago is quite odd. I was sleeping in my house that I live alone in a few miles away from a town in Montana where I was awoken by a loud bang. I sat up rubbing my eyes, still half awake. I heard what sounded like a dull thumping and it seemed to be coming from outside. I have a cat who meows anytime a person walks up to it, and that's the only time it meows when someone is nearby. It started meowing outside my bedroom. At this point, fear gripped my heart as I barely pulled back my curtain to see what was outside. From my angle of the window, I could only see a shadow in the shape of what looked like a humanoid figure. It was slowly swaying from side to side. I was too scared to look further and see what was casting the shadow and quickly closed the curtains. The cat kept meowing. After a few fearful minutes, I decided to confront whatever was out there. I opened my door and rushed outside to be met with nothing. My cat was nowhere to be seen. Luckily I found him the next day sleeping in the garden. This was a very unsettling and confusing experience. I have no idea what it could have been. I live practically 5 miles from anyone else, and I found no evidence of people the next day, and didn't hear any walking on the gravel road or hear any cars. Another person had a similar encounter in which they detailed experiencing a shadow person. They said the black mass was hovering above their bed, and when they woke up they felt nothing but fear. After around 10 seconds this figure evaporated into the air, and the feeling of dread disappeared. They said they haven't seen the black mass since but are still afraid of the experience. This person who wishes to be called Jay had a mysterious encounter. They said the following. To this day I don't know what this thing was. I have researched what I witnessed and I believe that what I saw was a Skinwalker. It wasn't just me who witnessed this either, my teacher saw it too. I was in 2nd or 3rd grade at the time. I'm someone who loves animals, especially wolves. My teacher knew how much I love wolves, so she said that after answering a certain amount of questions we could look at live footage of wolves. I was so happy. I got to watch them for several minutes, and as the class was coming to an end I got one final look. As I was watching the live footage I noticed something in the corner of my eye. I looked at what just stepped into the camera view and couldn't explain what it was. It was a grey figure, but I couldn't tell how tall it was because of how high up the camera was. This humanoid was grey and didn't look normal. It was completely pale. Also, during this encounter it was winter, so it would have been hard for someone to be outside with no clothes on. I pointed this strange looking humanoid out to my teacher and she saw it too. What's bizarre is that it was just standing there watching the wolves, and this creature didn't move. I asked what is this and my teacher said they don't know. I've told some people and they said it could have been the Rake. The Rake is a creature that has been around for many years. Stories have come from people who have encountered this alleged creature, and the victim is haunted by the encounter. They're believed to be humanoid in appearance, with several references in folklore and urban legends. The creature reportedly attacks humans due to unknown reasons, and often causes its victims great psychological trauma. Several theories as to the first development of the Rake point towards internet threads and online discussions. However, some believe this creature is based on something real. One person had this to say. While walking in the forest, we encountered something strange. This animal didn't look normal and was completely white. It had long thin arms and legs and also gave off a foul odour. Me and my friends were watching it from a distance. The creature then started to crawl around on the forest floor, and this is when me and my friends ran for it. I wasn't able to take a photograph as it was too dark, and I didn't want the flash to go off as the creature would have known we was there. I have no idea what this thing was. Thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.